So git status. So we were in the branch, it is clean. Git branch, git checkout, main. So git pull origin, or like, whichever your branch, you can do git pull itself. It pulls the latest code. Now, again, git branch. So till class. So git checkout, new branch, class 13. So clear the screen. So now working today on the continue, pass, exit, and the Walrus operator. To start with. So where we are.
ఇప్పుడే వచ్చారా?
Excuse me. Yeah, fine. So coming today, in terms of the continue, build, and other operations, if you can start. So here within the continue, what we need to understand about the loops is that there are three types of things within the loops. If I can start with the loops, some file I'm creating. So within the loops, either we can do with for loop or while loop. First, let me start with a while loop. For loop is easy for perceiving. So while loop is it's strange, right? So that's why I'm focusing more there. So if you see here, there are break, continue, pass, and sys.exit. So here, initially, let's take a small loop. If I create a loop like I equal to 0, while I less than 7, or like I can give any number. If I say while I less than 7, so I plus equal to 1. This is what we know in terms of looping. So if I do like a print statement of I, if I do like a just print of I, you can notice that you can see all the values coming from 1 through 7. But if I say like 1, I less than or equal to, then you can see that it is getting till 8 also. But the execution is happening like this. Now, with a slight difference to this one. So to understand the importance of break, I will take this same loop, but slightly change it. So what I will do this time is that I will write like some kind of break. So I will take a condition. If I percentile 2 is equal to, or like I equal to 2, if I take I equal to say 3 is equal to 0, sorry, I equal to 3, then you break it. Now, interesting point you can observe is that, so whenever user is typing, you can see that values. Or if you want all values in the single line, as I told you, end equal to, if I give a white space or a comma, you can get it right. The same thing print statement I can write here also. You can notice now that in the first line, you got all the values, but when you go for the second one, you got only till here. The moment you encountered 3, it is breaking it. That's why in the output, you cannot see from 3 onwards. So break is the a keyword. Whenever it is occurring, immediately things will stop. So if I take the one more example, importance of continue. So sometimes you want the logic to break the moment some condition was encountered. Or for certain conditions, you want to skip the execution. So in those cases, instead of break, I will write a continue. Now observe the difference in these three. You can notice that in the first case, you got all the values. In the second case, the moment a condition was met, it's broke in the code. And whereas in the third case, the moment this condition is there, it is skipping that. Okay, instead of equal to, let me do something. Say percentile 2 equal to 0. Means what? It is like an even, right? The moment you encountered the first even number, it will break. So if I say even number now. Now for the same thing, condition was changed. Did you observe the moment even means what? 2 is an even. So the moment a first even was encountered, it broken. Only till 1 you got. But in the third case, things are different. The moment you encountered in even values, you are continuing. Means, did you see that you got all the odd values? Only, so what it actually does means, continue whenever it is encountered, the remaining part of the loop will be skipped, not the starting. So it will execute from the starting, it will encounter the continue. So after this, any more statements will not be executed. It can be 1 or 10 or any number. So whenever you want to skip a particular loop or a particular set of loops based on the condition, we can go with this. And the third one, so like this, there is one more thing called as pass. If you see, same conditions I wrote everywhere. So I wrote here break, here I wrote continue, here I wrote pass. Now observe the difference in all these three cases. In the first case, you got all the loops, but in break, the moment you encountered that condition, it broken. It didn't execute the next loops. So whereas in the third case, for whichever condition it is satisfying, it will skip the loop, means remaining lines. Remaining lines means next loop is fine, only within the loop I'm saying. Within the loop, the remaining lines after continue will be skipped. Whereas in pass, did you see that it is same like what you are doing in the above? So whatever you are doing above, the same things are there. So then what is the difference, sir, between the first one and this last one? In the first case, you don't have any pass, any of the keywords. But in the last case, you have a pass. But what exactly it is doing? So pass is like a placeholder. It really makes no sense to have a pass. But in which case we need to write pass? Let me give an example. Let's say your senior is, or your architect is saying that you need to handle a condition for something, but I don't know what exactly the logic need to be done for that condition, but ensure it should be there. I will tell you afterwards. So this will act like a placeholder. Means whether you don't write it condition or not, it makes no difference. So why you write is for our logic. Let's say if you want to create an empty class, say my class, if I will write, I don't know what logic to write. I will write a pass. Or if I write some condition or some function, define my function. So next you will learn these functions. You don't know what logic to be done. Then you write a pass. So anytime if you want the syntax to be intact, you need to make some kind of particular code, like a dummy code. We can use a pass. So that's a point. Now, there is a last important point called as Sys.exit. Means we need to use a module called as, let me comment this one, like this one. There is something called as sys module. Using sys module, we can do something. There is sys has something called as exit. Using sys.exit, we can do something interesting. So what is this doing means, it is same like a break, but it is slightly different. So there are 2 points here. How different is it from the break, and why you are passing a 0 here? Why I'm passing 0 means sometimes, let's say daily you need to go to your Facebook account, and who are the new friend requests are coming, you need to accept that. Assume on a particular day there were no new friend requests. Then you can stop, right? It is not a bug in the code, but there are no new friend requests, you are exiting. So when everything is good and you want to exit for good, so then you give a 0. So whenever there is some kind of abnormality, maybe password has expired or something else happened, you cannot do your job, then you want to exit. Then that is a abnormal termination. Then you need to give a 1 like that. Sir, why only 0 and 1 means? This is a common thought process like every language has gone through. It is nothing to do with Python, but generally programs will communicate each other. When they send like a 0 in the final, means everything is good. Who will take this response? Means this program, whoever is executing. So right now we are doing manual execution, but in real time it will not be a manual execution. Maybe a tool like an Airflow or something else will execute these scripts. So they will make an audit of whether things were success or fail, like that. So for them it will be helpful. Then the second point, how different is it from the exit? Sorry, break. If you see the point, after this, if I write some statement, generally, in the break also, the moment the condition is encountered, it is not executing the remaining loop. Whereas in exit also, you are seeing the same thing. But what is the difference, sir, means? Let me tell you. If I write some statements after it, generally after break only, you have a lot of statements, right? So everything is working. But if you work with Sys.exit, that would be the last executing statement in the script. If I have next statement, generally it should print, right? But it will not print because the moment you execute encounter Sys.exit, that is the last statement to execute in the script. So whereas break, so it will break only from the loop. So that is the difference between these two. Okay, sir, if I need to try the same thing on the for loops, you can try again. So instead of I explaining, so I will give it for you. So try using the for loops. So, you can take this as an assignment, so try the same using for loop. So for loop means you need to have an object on which you need to loop. So let me take some kind of students. So I will give some kind of students. I am defining. You need to loop over it. Or you can create a range. So using range, you can generate the values and you can loop over it. So you can try looping on it. So take it as an assignment. So next, a small examples like this. Say you can calculate the average of the values. So whenever you have more values, you can calculate the average of them. So generally, when you are given like more values, you want to calculate their averages in runtime. So rather than explaining that, I want to tell some interesting point here. There is one more built-in function I just want to introduce to you, which is called like, eval. So eval is like a built-in function which will evaluate the results. Means what do you mean by evaluating, sir? Means generally whenever you want certain things to be executed, say like I will give this example. So you gave a 1 as a string, it understood that it is like a 1 and it gave like it is 1 as an integer. Did you observe? So let me give you one more example. If I give like a floating point value as a string and I'm asking to eval, then it understood that it is like a floating point value and it is giving the result. Sir, so what if I give something like this? The same example, I will take like this. Instead of a this one, I will give a space. Then will it treat it like an integer or like a float, or what will happen? So it will throw a syntax error because it is not perfect, right? So means whenever you give something in runtime, if you want to evaluate them, so we can use like this. In fact, in Python 2, the input function will do the same thing. So it is like an internal function. Most of the time people don't use it because of the security reason. So there is something called as injection attacks whenever users are making calls. So we don't want everything to be executed. First, we need to validate it. So that's why we should be very careful working with eval function. Similarly, if you give like an expression, generally, if you for a int or a float or something, you cannot give an expression. It will throw an error. So whereas this one will evaluate an expression also. It is evaluating the expression and giving you the result, right? And also one good important point is that if I give, say, something like this, you see, result equal to apple, means in a single quotes I gave. Did you see it is throwing an error? So I gave like an apple. It is saying, do you mean a tuple? Means like it understood like that and it is trying to tell us. Rather, so instead of that, sir, what if I give that in a double quotes? Will it make any difference? So let me try giving a double quotes. If I execute, will it throw an error? Yes, it throwed an error again. Means whether you give single quotes or double quotes, it makes no sense. But what it makes sense is like, if you give like within the quotes, like a quotes, just imagine what I'm trying to do. Within the quotes, like a quotes means outside I have like a single quotes, within that I have like a quotes. So whereas if I do the same thing in a reverse way, so if I write within single quotes and I enclose that in double quotes, so either way, if I do, it will work. But observe carefully what I am trying to do. Instead of apple, let me take the example of a mango. So mango is a variable I defined, and I told like, mango is like 12. Now the same example I will take like apple. So with a single quotes only I will do. So earlier I did like a one quote, I will place it. So now you will understand something interesting. So if I ask, hey, what is this string and what is the value? It will give you the answer. Did you see that it is of type integer? Means when you give like a single quote, it will treat that as a variable, and it is thinking that the variable should be first defined and for the usage. So if I give like a single quotes or double quotes, it works in the same way. So you see here. So both ways it is a 12, it's an integer. Fine. So means we need to define the variable outside and we can use it. In the same fashion, if I define the same apple again, something else, I can define outside and use it. So I can define any variable. So this is one thing I want to bring. In the same fashion, so now coming to the case of averaging, can you see that you can do, okay, I will give an assignment. So calculate the average of values, numbers provided in runtime. Means you should take any number of values in runtime, and once you are given all the values, you need to do the average value. So if you want like, so hints for it, you can use like a while loop. So you can use like the input function to get the values, and we can use the eval function for evaluating it. So, and you can use the length function for calculating the total length for the dividing. And you can use the sum, which is a built-in function for getting the summation of the values. So these are the different functions. So next thing, if I want to execute something like Walrus operator, same like these things, there was another operator called as Walrus. So what is this Walrus operator? What it does? Have you ever seen a Walrus? So Walrus means this is how it would be. Walrus, it has like two sharp trunks, right? So our operator also will be like this. If I can take this assignment usage, let me take like a very simple usages for this Walrus. In terms of Walrus, it was an operator which was introduced in Python 3.8. It is also called as assignment expression or Walrus. So there is one pip. As I told you, so Python enhancement proposal, for everything there will be one pip. So whenever they want to propose anything. So it is a combination of both two values. What it does, I will tell you. So let's assume that traditionally we have something. Value is equal to 100 and we are printing the value. So instead of we assigning and printing, in one shot we can do. Did you see that? So if I define like without defining, if I ask value to, will it give a value? It will definitely throw an error, right? So if I say clear and Python a so and so, if I execute, what it does? Hey, you defined variable value 1, you asked it. But if you didn't define value 2, how do I get it? I cannot get it. So we need to define this value. So instead of you defining outside and doing, we can define and give immediately like this. Say 200 if I give. Now it is a way in which you create and use it. Creating and using immediately, one shot. If I do like, value equal to, if I do, will it work? It will throw an error, right? So we cannot do like this. So that's what I want to give this difference for you to understand. So this colon equal to is a unique expression. It will tell that it will create and use immediately. Similarly, one more example. If I take, say, I have one value like this. Number one is equal to 123, and I'm doing a percentile 2, means dividing by 2. If the dividing by 2 is not equal to 0, then it is an odd. This is what we say. Now the same thing can be done in a different way. So what I can do, number one colon equal to 123 means first it will create the value, right? Then for that result, I will divide by 2 and I will check. Means if this result is so and so, then I get the same answer. Did you understand? We are creating the variable and using it. In which cases we need to go for scenario? Sometimes we will create one variable that is used only for one condition. In that case, instead of creating, we can use. But if the same thing is useful for multiple purposes, this is not the correct way. So whereas if I go for like one more example. So in this use case, let me tell you, if I have one integer, I am trying to get in runtime and I'm converting to integer and I'm doing this operation. Now I think you can help me better. So number one colon equal to whatever this is there, I am writing, and this result I want to do a divide, right? So I can do like this. So generally when more braces are there, it would be confusing, but it's easy if you can understand. So if condition I write. So now did you see that both were working the same way? Both times it is asking and it is evaluating. So if I give like 233, in both cases, it were odd. You got the value. So that is how it works. Now last fourth case, if I go, say I have an example where I have like this, where what I'm doing, I'm defining a list and I'm asking the length of it. And if the length is greater than 3, I'm printing it. So if you just want to do this one, I can do in a better way. Means assume that these numbers are already there. For this condition, I want to do. So I will do n colon equal to length of a. So for this, I want to evaluate greater than 3. So if it is so and so, then I want to execute it. Now did you see the same thing? So instead of complicating, we are making it easy. Similarly, if I go for like more examples over there, so subsequently when you go for the different examples, but I don't think I can explain these things at this stage, but down the line you will learn about it whenever we are using. See, whenever I am part of a dictionary, I'm using it. These dictionaries and others you will learn afterwards. But see here, whenever you want a particular thing, immediately you are using it. In this particular example, it's easy to understand. There were 3 variables you are defining outside and you are using them. So just to use in one dictionary, we are defining outside. So if that is the only use case, then you can define and use immediately there itself instead of defining outside. So like that, in many use cases, it will be helpful. So down the line, when you are going for different examples, I will explain their usage there. Next, going further, if I go, next one is about the exceptions. What do you mean by exceptions and exception handling? So there is a common misconception for everyone that, exceptions and errors are same. But in fact, exception and error are two different things. One is a cause and other one is a solution. So means like when exceptions are up, means exception means what? So he is exceptional compared to others. He is exceptional. He is different. Or like we are accepting this guy. So sometimes, so he's a junior. We are accepting that there is a mistakes, and we are okay with that. So generally we do. So let me clear the screen. Fine. Means when some errors are happening, So the errors need to be handled. Generally, errors are of like different purposes. Why error comes? Will someone write a code which is having errors? First of all, no. If you know 100%, you definitely won't try to get an error. But still, why errors are coming? Because there are different issues. So the errors in briefly are of two types. So means errors can cause due to lack of understanding of the language, or like logically you are incorrect, right? So, or you don't have some edge case that you need to cover. Let's assume that you created a Facebook scraper. So, but you cannot use that when password was expired. Means you were creating everything good, but what can you do if password was expired? Or if someone is giving the wrong password for most amount of times, then password will lock. So there are some edge cases which any developer cannot touch. So due to the particular project constraints or anything, in those cases, we need to accept it. So if you see logically, the errors are of three classification. The first one is due to the syntax errors. Syntax errors we need to address immediately based on the language. Two, exceptional errors. As I told, DB password lock or runtime. These need to be handled. Whereas the third kind of things are logical errors. Means you are supposed to do addition, but what did you do here? Multiplication. So for that, we need to do debugging. So the next chapter will be onto the debugging, but this is more mostly into handling these exceptions. Means if something, an error happens, it will not tell that, hey, password was reset or password was locked. So if that can tell like that, there is no point of we developing it, right? It can do on its everything. It will tell that, the user didn't match or the password was 0 or none, like that it will tell. So we need to understand, based upon the logic we are building, we can handle them. Okay, sir, what are the different kinds of exceptions that can be handled and what are them? So in Python, as of now, so there were like different kinds of exceptions that you can handle it. If you see overall, we have a tree of exceptions. If you go to this particular module, you can see the list of exceptions that were handled and you can pass. So the latest built-in exceptions, it is saying, right? So these are all built-in exceptions. To have a list, you have this one. Total exceptions will be coming under the base exception. Under the base exception group, you have like base exception, generator error, or like keyboard error, system error, like that. And the remaining all exceptions are coming in general in real time. By looking at it, you can understand whether it is arithmetic error, floating point error, overflow error, zero division error. So these are all the common things, right? So by looking at it, you can understand it. So you can understand whenever you are getting a memory error, you want to take and you want to divide and run. Or like whenever you are getting a name error, means that variable was not defined. Whenever you are getting a zero division error, means you are dividing by 0. So, and sometimes if you want to handle, why this hierarchy was given is, if you are handling zero division error, you will handle only that. But if you are handling arithmetic error, you can handle any of these three errors. Similarly, if you are handling exception, you can handle all these kinds of exceptions. Did you see how beautiful it is? So, but sir, can I remember all these things at this moment? You may not. But so slowly by understanding, you will remember. If it is like a OS error, it can handle file error, file exit error, file not error, all these things. So like that, for everything, there is a classification and subclassification. Now, in terms of the handling the exception. So first, how these exceptions are there, how it will know that what are the things are there. If you don't know these things, you cannot remember also, you can get to know. There is a module in Python called as built-ins. So whatever you are using, so everything will be part of the built-ins. If I execute it, you will understand what all things are there. So if I come out of it, CD04 exceptions, so clear, and Python 02 exceptions. Did you see that these were all the exceptions, errors, different kinds of errors that you are handling? So whatever I told in a hierarchical way, all are coming like a list. And apart from that, the built-in module will not only store these exceptions, but also, did you see these are the built-in functions? Whatever you are doing, some of the built-in functions you already used, like absolute, so and a few other things, ASCII and others, bin. So this is another way for you to understand how to use them. So when you need. Now coming to the case of exceptions, in which cases we can get these exceptions and how to handle it. For your understanding, I'm listing them also. Let's say I have written something like number 1 equal to so and so. So if I say number 1, it will define, that's it. If I say number 2 is equal to 20, so now did you see it is throwing an error? Means when I don't give this extra space in the starting, it works perfectly. But if I give some extra space here, it will throw an error, right? This is the most common error like every developer will face when you're starting Python for the first time. Unlike other languages, this space before it makes a lot of difference. After the statement, you can give any much of space. It makes no sense. But before starting, it should be very careful. Because Python don't have any kind of braces. They rely purely on this indentation. So what is this scenario? If you observe, there are two things it will mention. So one, the exception type, and what is the exception message. Okay, you got this exception right now. Now let's go for one more example. For loop, I'm going. For I in range of say 20, I want to print I. I want to print I. So if I give this tab space, it will work perfectly. Whereas if I don't give this tab space, then what will happen? It will throw an error. And observe, here also it is giving the same error. If I comment all these 3 lines, you can notice that the error is the same thing. Means under the same indentation error, here you don't need, but you give. That's what it is saying, unexpected intent. Here you need, but you didn't give, expecting an intended block. So now you need to understand there will be exceptions and exception messages also. Similarly, if I do like 10 by 0, obviously it will throw in error. Similarly, if I give like 10 percentile 0, it will throw another error. So it is saying like modulo division or modulo by 0. So like that, there will be 3 types of errors for the same division by 0. If I do like a common division, you get this message. If I do modulo, you get this message. And if I do floor division, you get this message. Means under the same exception, you have different things. Similarly, if I go for one more example, if I add an integer to a string, I will get a type error. So if I add like a float to a string, I get a type error. Message is same. See, message is different, right? So classification is same. Similarly, if I have a number which I defined, which is an integer, and if I'm doing dot upper, it is like an attribute error. Means for numbers, we cannot do upper, right? We need to convert to a string and do. Similarly, next you will learn something about dictionaries. For a dictionaries, if you are referring to a key, so which is not there, then it will give a key error. So like that, in real time, you will get a lot of errors. So one more example to give is like, if I take, say, one number, I think this one you faced a lot of times. You need to give a number in runtime and you need to convert to integer. But what if you give a float? It cannot read it. So it will throw a value error. So like that, there are different kinds of errors which can happen in real time, which we need to handle it. So for handling that, what is the way? That is the concept called as exception handling. So exception handling means you give a try block, and what are the logic that you are feeling will throw an error, you write there. You cannot stop the user from giving anything in runtime. But if you are creating a software and you are delivering to the end users, they need to use it. You cannot stop them, but if they are doing, we need to handle it. Okay. So hope it's clear. Next, so if I handle right now, now did you observe that if I give like 123, it works perfectly. But if I give like 123.23, it is not throwing an error, it is passing. Did you see here also I used the same pass? Because I don't know what to do when something is happening issue. So, or if you want to print something, so in a better way, I can write like the message. So you can handle that with a exception message. So means like I give like one more example. So instead of in this way, we can do in this way. See the same thing I'm doing. Instead of just printing, in the except I am handling with an exception. Did you remember this umbrella exception? This is called as an umbrella exception. Means it can handle all the exceptions, right? So all the exceptions can be handled with it. Hello. So next. So if you handle like this, now if I give anything, if I say point so and so, did you see it is handling it? This is an exception message. From that object, if you are converting to string, we can use it. So this is how it works. Next,